let's get started. So good morning, good evening, afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. And thank you so much for your interest in this opportunity in the Pratt & Whitney eSTEM Awards. We're so excited to have you all here. And we're excited to dive into this with you. This is a new opportunity that we're able to offer. And we're really hoping that you'll find the information that we share here today and the questions that we'll answer here today will be helpful. So first off, I wanted to introduce myself and my colleagues that are here helping with this webinar. So my name is Nina Hamilton. I'm a senior manager of international programs at the North American Association for Environmental Education. And I'm joined by my colleagues, my NAA colleagues, Anu Mali and Madeline Halvey, who are here. You'll see them in the chat. They'll help answer some of your questions. Madeline will be showing us a demo of the online application a little bit later. And then we're also joined here by Margot Bailey from Pratt & Whitney, and we'll be hearing from her in just a few minutes. So again, on behalf of all of us at NAA and at Pratt & Whitney, we're so excited to have you here today. And so thank you again for joining us and for your interest in this program. So just want to give you a quick overview of what we'll cover. Our goal here today is to walk you through the eSTEM award opportunities, help you develop a strong application for either the innovation grants or the excellence prize. And so after some housekeeping, we'll introduce you to the organizations behind this opportunity. So Pratt & Whitney and NAAE. We'll give you a quick overview of the two eSTEM award opportunities. We will, and we'll explain the difference between them. And we will also, for each opportunity, we'll be going through some of the application criteria, so the key application criteria that we want to help make sure that they're as clear as possible. We'll also have some overall advice that is relevant to both opportunities. And we'll do a really quick a demonstration of Submittable, our online application. We'll have some additional resources that you might find helpful, and then we will close with time for questions. So some quick housekeeping before we really get started. We do encourage you to share questions in the chat throughout. We will be pausing often for questions and at the end as well. So please do type your questions in the chat. My colleagues, Anne and Madeline, will help taking your questions and have them ready for any time that we pause. To help us avoid background noise, please do stay muted when you're not speaking. But we also want you to speak up anytime if we've said anything that isn't clear or if you want us to repeat anything. So you can say in the chat, you can raise your hand. Please do let us know if there's anything that we've said that isn't clear. We want to make sure that everything is as clear as possible. We are also live captioning this, and you can view the captions by clicking the little CC button on your Zoom toolbar. You can let Anne or Madeline know if you're having any trouble locating that. And we are also recording this webinar, and we will post the recording on our website within the next 24 or 48 hours. We will also be sharing out any links and possibly the slides as well with the recording to you all, to your emails as well. All right, so now we're going to share a really quick overview of the organizations behind this. So Pratt & Whitney, we're going to start with you, Margot. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Nina. Well, welcome everyone today. I'm really excited to be talking with all of you, and even more excited to see some of the final applications that come through for the Pratt & Whitney eSTEM Awards. My name is Margot, as said, and I manage our corporate social responsibility programs at Pratt & Whitney, everything related to our charitable giving, employee volunteerism, et cetera. And I'm really excited to be launching this program with the company, and even more importantly with the experts at NAAE. They've been really wonderful to work with, and I'm assuming most of you are also a part of their network. And if you're not yet, we'll have the opportunity to get to know them more and perhaps join. The reason, and I like to always share this with everyone, is, my why for the environment is I just love going through the White Mountains in New Hampshire in the USA with my dog. You can see him sleeping there as we're up on a mountain ledge. So I always like to share that. And for any of you who haven't been there and enjoy hiking, definitely worth your visit. That's us there on the Penny Loop in the White Mountains. I'm going to provide a really brief overview of Pratt & Whitney just on the next slide, and focus in specifically on what we're doing related to the sustainability in the environment. So for those of you who aren't familiar with our business, we are a leading manufacturer of aircraft engines across different sectors, from both military capacity to commercial, working a lot with different airlines, as well as with small private jets. And we have been leading the sustainable aviation journey over the last few decades, actually, with our GTF technology, our gear turbofan engine, which significantly reduces emissions, et cetera. But we've taken a step further over the last couple of years and are really focusing in on taking that more and going into smarter technology, cleaner fuel, and greener business. So for smarter technology, this includes obviously the GTF and encouraging the increased use of that, and investing in different types of propulsion technology, but also really looking into cleaner fuel, which for the industry will be a really key piece of moving to sustainable aviation fuel and having our current engines be able to be transitioned over. And then greener business, really focusing on continued reduction of our environmental footprint. And even more importantly, what I'm really focused on is in communities across the world, supporting through programs like this to help ensure that those communities are supporting their environment. And in this program specifically, we're really hoping to inspire young people through the work of your organizations by bolstering the funding for your organizations to help them learn about the environment and how they can solve environmental challenges through STEM skills like science, technology, engineering, and math, hence the name eSTEM. So I'm not going to go into any further. You're welcome to visit our website and learn more. And if you have any questions, you can certainly direct them my way and I can answer. But otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over so you can learn a little bit more about NAAE and then the application process too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marco. All right. So a little bit about NAAE, the North American Association for Environmental Education. First off, we are so excited to work with Pratt & Whitney and with Margot and her team to offer this opportunity. So here at NAAE, we are the professional association and champion for environmental education, both in North America, but also around the world. And we're working with educators and other environmental education professionals to really advance the impact and the practice of environmental education around the world. And our mission here at NAAE is to use the power of education to advance environmental literacy and civic engagement to help build a more equitable and sustainable future for everyone. So we really believe in the power of environmental education to equip people with the skills, knowledge, tools, motivations that they need to be active citizens and to also be good stewards of our environment. So now we're going to share a quick overview of the eSTEM Awards program and the two opportunities available, the Innovation Grants and the Excellence Prize. First off, what do we mean by eSTEM? So the eSTEM Awards, our goal with this program is to support programs and organizations like yours that engage students in meaningful STEM learning experiences. So that is in science, technology, engineering, and math, and to use to engage students in those learning experiences through environmental problem solving. So that is the E on eSTEM for environment. So eSTEM, it really promotes interdisciplinary learning, and it also really, it can empower students to help find solutions to the very complex real world environmental issues that we are facing today. And so I wanted to highlight the differences between these two opportunities before we dive in any further. So with the innovation grants, you are applying for a grant of up to $15,000 US dollars to implement a new eSTEM program or to enhance an ongoing program. And this program that you proposed would take place between November 2022 and October 2023. We will have up to 9 grants available worldwide, and each of those grants up to $15,000. For the Excellence Prize, on the other hand, you'll be applying for a prize of up to $50,000 US dollars. And that prize is to recognize a program that has already demonstrated excellence in eSTEM. So it's a program that you have already implemented, and you've already seen some positive outcomes from it. And it is, for the prize, it's completely up to you how and when you spend that prize for your organization or your program. And we will have up to 6 prizes available worldwide. And we'll be spreading the grants and prizes across our 3 priority regions. We have those listed out in the RFP. And you can apply to both, but you are only eligible to submit 1 program for each opportunity. All right, so quick eligibility. This is also listed out in the request for proposals, but want to make sure you will know if you are eligible. So first, you do have to be a registered nonprofit organization under your country's laws. So in the US, that would be a 501c3 organization, but this will of course be different if you're outside the US. You can be working anywhere in the world, just with the exception of any countries that have current US sanctions or other restrictions. You also have to have an active bank account that can receive electronic funds in US dollars. Your program must be working with students ages 11 to 18. And the students that you work with can be anywhere within that age range. You don't have to reach students across that whole age range. Your audience just has to be somewhere within that range. And for the grants, you have to implement and complete your grant project between November 2022 and October 2023. And at this time, we can only accept submissions in English. So please do fill the application form in English. All right, so in our request for proposals for each opportunity, we go into a lot more detail about all of the elements that we're looking for in the programs that you submit. So this is just a really quick overview, but please do read the RFPs for more detail about each of these. So the programs that you submit, whether it's for the prize or for the grants, they all must first engage students in 1 or more of the STEM topics, so science, technology, engineering, or math. They must also have an action component. So through your program, students must be empowered to take action to use what they're learning through those STEM skills. Your project must also include real-world student-directed environmental problem solving. And you must be engaging students to take action in at least 1 of our 3 priority areas. So those are climate change solutions, sustainable energy, and sustainable aviation. And again, in our request for proposals for each opportunity, we go into a lot more detail, especially around these priority areas. We give some examples of what a project, what some example projects might look like within those areas, just if you're looking for some inspiration. All right, some more things that you have to make sure that you include. You must also explain how your program promotes creative solutions and teamwork among students. You have to show how it improves STEM learning and environmental literacy in your audience. And you have to, your program must emphasize skills needed to pursue environmental careers. So for this last one, we encourage you to explore the Green Skills Framework in the Brookings Institution's Green New Learning Agenda. And we'll share the link to that out with this recording. It's also in the request for proposals and in the online application. It has a long list of green skills that you might find align with your programming. You do not have to pull skills from this list, but it is a resource that we encourage you to explore if you're looking for some inspiration for some of the skills that might align with your programming and with your goals. All right, and so these next two elements here, these are not required, but given that they are very important for building an equitable field and for boosting our impact, we are giving preference to programs that work with underrepresented audiences in STEM, whichever audiences that means in your country or region, and also for organizations that are working in partnership with other organizations, schools, governments, or other groups. So again, these are not required elements, but we really encourage you to find ways to incorporate them into your proposal, because we will be giving preference to those who do align with these two goals. All right, quick look at the timeline. So for both opportunities, the submission deadline is July 11th at 11:59 p.m. US Eastern Time. We have a time conversion link on our eSTEM Awards webpage. So please take a look and make sure you have the correct local time for that. All of your submissions have to be submitted for our online application, and we will do a quick demo of that a little bit later on in this webinar. We plan to notify everyone whether you receive an award or not by October 2022. And in October 2023, all of the awardees, so both grantees and prize winners, will attend and present at the NAA virtual conference. And the RFP, the request for proposals, includes an even more detailed timeline, including some of the responsibilities of both grantees and prize winners. So again, really encourage you to take a closer look at that document. So again, as I keep alluding to, please remember to read our request for proposals in detail. It has a lot more detail, some elements that we haven't even touched on, that we just don't have time to touch on. So reviewing those documents will really help you make sure that you have a clear understanding of what we're looking for in your proposals. All right, so our first pause for questions. Any questions so far?
Hi, Nina. There is a question from Adedoyan so far. And Adedoyan is asking so since the grant program and the prize program can be used to strengthen programs and for existing programs, can you apply for both using the same initiative?
That's a good question.
You can jump in, Nina, too, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Margot.
Come in. Yeah, so the eSTEM Innovation Grant is really for something that's completely new. That so if you were looking to strengthen something that you already have going, I would submit for the Excellence Prize. I think that would be a more fitting. And if you think the 50K is too much and not necessary for the kind of scale or enhancements that you want to make, you can't always request for exactly what you want. But I think the right field there, or the right path there, would be for the eSTEM Excellence, is what I recommend.
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. And for the grants, we do say it can be, you can submit an existing program, but you really have to be enhancing it in a very clear way. So there has to be some new or innovative element that really almost creates this opportunity for for that fits everything that we ask for in the grant RFP. So we don't have any restriction on submitting the same program for both opportunities. I think you will just really, you'll need to be careful about what each opportunity is asking for, because your application will have to be very different.
Mhm. And a good example too, I think that I've had some of our previous partners ask is some of our previous partners have had like purely STEM programs that they've been working on, not focus on the environment. And then they want to create, add enhancements to make it focused on the environment specifically and develop new curriculum, et cetera. That's kind of a new program. So I think that's a good example of where you really are creating a new program and should apply for the innovation grant.
Yeah.
So I have a few more questions here too. So Meredith is asking if they can include NAAE conference registration and travel into their budget if they are presenting. And another question from Sophie. Sophie is looking ahead, asking if they can apply for an innovation grant this year, and if there's funding available next year where they might be able to apply for an excellence prize the following year. So already thinking ahead to see if funding will be available next year.
I can answer too, if you want to answer the first question, Nina.
Sure. Yeah. So for the first question, next year's conference will be virtual, so there will be no travel required. So we will cover your registration. We'll cover whatever, we'll cover the registration costs to attend virtually, but you do not need to include that within your budget. That will be covered for you as a grantee or as a prize winner.
Yeah, and then for that second question, you can certainly apply this year for an eSTEM innovation grant and then next year for the excellence prize. We're like 90% sure that this is going to run next year again in years to come. So, but that's 90%, but that will definitely be something that will be open to you. So if you want to start a program this year and then later apply for the bigger award, it's definitely something you can plan on.
That is great news to hear. I want to ask one more question from Megan. Megan is asking if expanding the scope of their work, for example, adding climate change as a central theme, would that count as enhancing your current program?
I would say yes.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Hi. Hello, everyone. You all hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to, I raised my hand so that I can ask a question, please, or two questions. One, I am from Trinidad and Tobago, which isn't really considered to be in the Americas. We often get lumped with Latin America and the Caribbean, because I saw the Americas as one of the program areas. So would we be able to apply? And two, under the climate change section, can waste management activities be considered, or does it have to be specific to, will the waste management activity have to be specific to greenhouse gas emissions? So two questions. Can we apply from Trinidad and Tobago, although we're not considered to be either in North America or South America? We're in the Caribbean. And two, under the climate change, can waste management activities be considered if the focus is on greenhouse gas emissions? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So first question, yes, you're definitely eligible. The Americas cover North America, South America, Latin America, Caribbean, anything within the Americas. I know we had a very broad, a very vague definition of that, but you are definitely eligible. And then second question, and Margot, I'll let you add on to this if you have anything to add to, but I think yes, I think that would still align with the climate change priority area. And you just, in your application, you just need to make that connection clear with whatever your activities are and with how that is contributing to maybe what larger scale climate change solutions. That helps. Margaret, did you have anything?
No, I think you said it great. Yeah, just making that connection clear to how your work is connecting to climate change and what
Okay.
what aspect of STEM it's also addressing in terms of skills.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Michelle. Yeah, I saw your hand raised.
Question. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. First of all, Margot, Nina, team, this is excellent. We're very excited. 2 questions for us as well. If we were to partner with an international organization, say we're based in Maryland, but we wanted to partner with an organization, say in Trinidad or in South America, is there an issue with that? And would we be considered kind of like the prime or the lead since we're in the US? Or do we work in concert and just fly together? That's one question. The second question is really in reference to, and something you may be bringing up, if we were blessed to get the prize or to get an award, that presentation in October, would that be presenting the new ideas, what we planned, what should we anticipate? Would that be more of like a final report or some sort of reporting? Just want to get an idea, if we were blessed to get funding, how to prepare reporting and the metrics.
Yeah. Nina, you want me to take these or you want to take 2?
Yeah, I'll take 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Michelle, for your question on partnerships with international organizations, we definitely encourage partnerships, which I think Nina just touched on. You just have to, really demonstrate in your application, and we recommend through kind of a letter of partnership where you have that other organization signing on that they're going to be working with you on this. It just helps us get a better sense of like, yes, this will actually be able to happen. They'll be able to implement this. And then in terms of like what region you would be in, we're really focusing in a little bit more on where the students are that you're going to be reaching. So like, let's say you have great curriculum and you want to bring it to Colombia and Latin America, like, then we consider that kind of in the Americas, plus you're in there in the Americas already. But let's say, if you have a situation where you're going to be reaching students both in the US where you're based as well as in Singapore. We determine how to work that out, but we're definitely looking for global applications, and we're also encouraging partnerships. So that would be totally viable. And I'll let you go on number 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for the conference, the goal with what you'll present during the conference is to share, if you share some outcomes from your grant project. And also, I think we'll be looking for lessons learned that you can be sharing with other organizations, with other professionals through that platform. So that might look a little bit different for each awardee, depending on the scope of your project, depending on when you are collecting that information, if you've collected in time for those presentations. But our goal would be for you to have some outcomes to present on by the time that the conference comes around, even if they're preliminary outcomes. Does that help?
It does. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Great. I know we have a lot of great questions. I'm going to address the underrepresented audiences question, and then I am going to keep moving on, but I do have a couple more breaks just in case I'm already addressing some of your questions in the next section or 2. And I really want to make sure that we get all of this information in, but we will get to as many of these questions as we can. Such great questions so far. So thank you for joining and bringing your great questions. Regarding underrepresented audiences, we do not have a specific definition of what an underrepresented audience is in STEM, because we really want you, the applicant, to consider what that looks like within your specific country, within your region. Wherever you are, we did not want to provide a strict definition of what that looks like. We also do not have a percentage requirement of what percentage of your audience is underrepresented. all that we ask is that you describe your audience, and you're welcome to provide percentages if you'd like. But we do ask that you describe your audience and show how your program is tailored to those audiences that you're working with. So I hope that helps. Happy to answer more questions about it. I'm going to move on to some specific application criteria that we hope will help you as you're actually filling out the application. So as I mentioned before, our request for proposals outlines in a lot of detail how we're going to be reviewing and scoring your submissions. And we have very specific criteria for each application question. They are different for each opportunity, but we're going to highlight a couple for each of the opportunities. And definitely recommend that you read through the RFP for anything that we cannot cover on the webinar today. So first, for the innovation grants. So again, this is for up to $15,000, an up to $15,000 grant to implement a new or an enhanced program before October 2023. So these are the scoring criteria that our reviewers will use. This is all listed in the request for proposals, and these all align directly with the application questions that you'll see in the online application. And here you can also see the points that are allocated to each criteria. So you'll see some have more weight than others, but all of these together are really important to paint that full picture of your program. And so these highlighted in green here, these are the ones that we're going to cover today. But I definitely encourage you to take a close look at the RFP for the others. All right, so first, the project description. You'll see in the application, you have 800 words to build out your project description. This is the first and longest section of the application. And this is where we really want you to describe your proposed objectives and your activities. And so in this section, you will also include all of the following. So how your project addresses at least one STEM discipline, how it aligns with one or more of the priority areas that we described, how it engages students in real-world student-directed environmental problem solving, and also how it promotes creative solutions, teamwork, STEM and environmental literacy, and green skills. So basically how your project aligns with all of those elements that I went through earlier. And you'll see this is the same for the Excellence Prize. These elements are common across both opportunities. So along with that description, that 800-word description, you have the option to upload a letter of commitment from any major partners that you plan to work with on your project. So you can include letters from up to 3 organizations, and make sure that in their letter, they describe the role that they will play in the proposed project. We have more details in the online application about what to include in the letter, including contact information, a signature, a couple other things. So please look at the online application before you start requesting these letters from partners. Again, these are optional, but we do recommend them if you do have some key partners that you're working with. So in the outcomes and evaluation section, the 300 words, and we are looking for you to identify at least one outcome for each objective that you've included in your project description. So that is what outcomes you will measure in order to determine if your project has achieved its goals. So we're looking for outcomes that are focused on STEM learning and environmental literacy in the students that you'll work with. They should be feasible to assess within that 1-year grant period. And they should also align with both the activities that you've described and with the audience that you're working with. And along with these outcomes, we ask you to describe how you will evaluate success. So how you will evaluate those outcomes that you listed. And what's most important here is that your plan is clearly feasible within your time frame, your staff capacity, and your budget. And that you've also considered your audience's age and cultural identity in deciding how you will measure those outcomes in your audience. Now, also keep in mind that you can evaluate your success quantitatively or qualitatively. There's a whole range of methods that you can use. You can use tests, quizzes, surveys, interviews, focus groups, observations, drawings. There's a whole range of things that you can use. And we really encourage you to use whichever method is best suited for your project, your audience, and your capacity. We're not looking for highly elaborate evaluation plans. You don't need, highly scientifically rigorous methods. We just want to see that you've considered how you will evaluate the success of your project within the context and scope that you are working. And so here are a few examples of outcomes that you'll see in the request for proposals. Again, these are just examples, and please identify what makes the most sense for your project. So with these examples here, you can see that both of these outcome examples are possibly feasible within 1 year. They are specific enough to be measurable, so you can measure them with some evaluation method. And they are all related to STEM learning or environmental literacy. But the percentages that you have, or the methods, or the skills or knowledge or motivation that you're targeting should really align with your project's specific goals. All right, so the next section that we wanted to cover for the grants is the timeline and budget. And this is the timeline and budget for your 1 year project that you're proposing. So first, you will need to download the timeline and budget template from our online application, where it says download the template here. And a little bit later on here, Madeline is going to do a quick demo to make sure that you can see where this is. You will use this one document, this one Excel spreadsheet for both your timeline and your budget. And note that the template that you download will have 3 tabs. One tab is the instructions, the next is timeline, and then budget. So please make sure that you look through all 3 tabs closely. In the timeline tab, in the timeline template, we give you a 1-line example of how you can fill out this template. So add in your key activities and then mark off however you'd like when those activities will take place. And for the timeline, we really ask you to focus on the major events. So the major activities or products that are part of your bigger project. You don't need to include every small activity, but please be sure to include enough detail that we can see how it aligns with what you've described in your project description. It's like the most important piece of advice that we can give you here is just to make sure that everything aligns. If there's a major activity mentioned in your project description, make sure that it is included in the timeline so that our reviewers can see how everything lines up together over the course of the year. So aligning with the project description, all of your activities must also take place within the grant period, so before October 2023. And you can add as many rows as you need. You download the template and adapt it how you need. All right, and then the next part of this template is your budget. So this is what the budget template looks like. You'll have the item column, grant amount, your matching funds, and in-kind amount, and description column as well. So remember that your budget request for the ESTEM innovation grants should be up to $15,000 US. You don't need an incredibly detailed budget, but we do need enough detail and explanation in the description column to see why each expense is necessary to the project. If you do have any matching funds or in-kind support, we encourage you to list that in that matching funds and in-kind column, but it is not required that you have either of those. It's not required that you have support outside of the eSTEM grant. But if you do, matching funds includes funding that you've received from other donors or other sources, and in-kind support refers to time or items that have been donated. So like volunteer time or equipment, or maybe a donation of space where you carry out your activities. And so if you have in-kind support, please estimate the dollar value of what that support, the dollar value of that form of support. So for example, if it's donated space, you can include the amount that it would have cost to rent that place. So you can list all of that in that matching funds column. Again, it's very important that you also align your budget with that project description. Make sure that your budget items clearly cover the expenses for those major activities that you mentioned. And it's also important that your project description and your evaluation plan are all backed up by your budget. And finally, make sure that all amounts are in US dollars, and you can add as many rows as you need. And I believe there was a question about overhead expenses, if that can be included in your budget. And we do not have any restrictions that we have put out related to overhead or other administrative costs. So you can tailor the budget to however you need to accommodate that. All right. And again, you can add as many rows as you need. Okay, next, pause for questions. Any questions related to the innovation grants?
So Nina, there was one question earlier from Turkey where they're asking if they can apply for the grant if their work focuses mostly on environmental literacy. Does that make them ineligible for the Excellence Prize? And if they should focus on possibly the smaller grant if they were to add STEM skills? Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, so I think what I would recommend is to go back through all of those required elements that we mentioned, so that you're including at least one STEM discipline or skill, that it aligns with one of the priority areas. There's real world student driven problem solving, all of those elements. I would say if you go through that checklist and your program does not meet any of those, then I would recommend applying for the grant, because you can find a way to adapt your activities to build in those elements. If you go through that checklist and it aligns with all of those requirements, then, and it is a program that you have already implemented, then by all means, you can submit that for the prize. Does that help? Does that answer that question? Margot, did you have something to add?
No, I was gonna add, there was a question from China too that I was gonna answer.
Oh, yes. I was going to bring it up next. You can take that one, Margot.
There was a question from China, from Yutong, asking about if they've already been having an eSTEM program for several years and they want to use the grant to conduct further teacher training and evaluation if you're eligible to apply. I would say yes. If you already have an eSTEM program running, I'd apply for the Excellence Prize, and you can certainly use that funding to do further training with your teachers and evaluation as well.
Yeah, definitely. As long as it aligns with those key elements, and it sounds, if you've got STEM skills in there, you've got environmental problem solving, it sounds like that would be eligible. Yes.
And then there's one more question specific to how the funding will be dispersed. Meredith is asking if money will be given upfront or if it will be distributed through a reimbursement process. Can you say more about that?
Great question. It will be provided upfront, so you will not need to provide any reimbursements, reimbursement forms or anything like that. Yep. All right. If there are no other questions so far, I am going to, Ada Doyen, did you have a question?
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify, I want clarification on two things. One is that, okay, for instance, I was one that asked about using the same program, the same initiative for the two applications. What I meant is this: now that we have a program where we work with secondary school students, high school students, and there are amazing results already. Now, that's I was thinking we could use for the prize. And now we begin to gather them together in terms of as school clubs, student clubs, which is very new, really. It's something that the Fed could facilitate long-term engagement. So I was thinking we could apply with the grants for that. I don't know if you get my point now. That's one. Then two, I think I'll still find that later when I look into details. But if you can just answer, for the price, do we need support letters?
I'll get into that. Yeah,
Thank you.
I will cover that.
Thank you.
Yes, so for you, the program that you've described, it sounds like, yeah, as we said earlier, if what you're proposing will include some very new elements that you have not done before, then you might be eligible for the grants opportunity. So it does have to be distinct, very distinct from what you have done, and it has to include a very new component that maybe it builds on what you have done, but it has to be entirely new from what you have done before. That would be eligible for the grant. And for the program that you've already implemented, as long as it aligns with those key elements that we have described, you can apply for that for the prize. And you can submit one application for each, but you can't submit more than one for each opportunity.
Yeah, and it's likely you only win one or the other, just because we're trying to spread the love. So if I were you, I would focus on the prize, since you have an eSTEM program already that's working well. Because you could, if you win the prize, you can always direct some of those funds to the enhancement, which is something we do take into consideration as well. If you want to scale up your program or add in like clubs, I think is what you mentioned. So
yeah, and I'll get into that also here in a second.
Very powerful. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Great. All right, so make sure that we get through everything. I'm going to move ahead to cover the innovation grants and wrap everything up here. So now onto the Excellence Prize, so now for the Excellence Prize, again, this is for up to $50,000 US. It's a prize that recognizes a program that has already been implemented and has had some positive outcomes that you can report on. So here's the scoring criteria for the Excellence Prize. Again, these are listed in the request for proposals, and they align directly with the application questions. And you can see here the points that we have allocated to each. And these are the three areas that we're going to cover today. And I encourage you to look through the others in the RFP. So for the Excellence Prize, you will need to meet all of the same criteria as the grants that we covered earlier on. So it has to align with a STEM skill, one of the 3 priority areas, student-directed learning, all of those elements. You also need to include those in your project description for the Excellence Prize. The only difference is that here you are describing activities, that you have already implemented. And so again, the prize RFP lays out all of these required elements. I encourage you to use that as a reference as you are writing out your application. And so again, in this project description, you're describing these completed activities and overall how those activities contributed to your project being a success. It can be an ongoing project, but what you submit for the prize, in your application, you should be able to describe enough completed activities and outcomes to demonstrate why the project has shown excellence in eSTEM. So your project just has to have been going on enough so that you have some of these completed activities and outcomes to share. And in the Excellence Prize project description, we also give you the option to add some supporting materials in the project description section. In the innovation grants, you also have the opportunity to provide supporting materials, but it's in a different section. You will find it in the RFP. So don't worry, if you're applying for the grants, you also have the opportunity to share some of these materials. But in the prize, it is within the project description. And we ask that you provide any links that back up the activities that you have described in your project description that you've described from this implemented project. So this can be links to photos, videos, anything else that backs up those activities that you've described. Please, please, please make sure that your links do not require a login, a sign-in, or that for example, if it's a news article, make sure that there's not a subscription required. Our reviewers will not be able to review anything that requires authorization or permission to view, anything like that. So please make sure that you've set all those settings how they need to be so that our reviewers can access any links that you provide. So for the prize, you are also, and just to say, also the supporting materials, they are not required, but we do highly recommend that you provide some links to support what you have described in your description. For the prize, you're also encouraged to upload letters of commitment from any major partners, but again, it is not required. So this can be letters from up to 3 organizations, and make sure that the letter describes the role that they played in the project that you are submitting. So in the project that you've already implemented or completed. There again are more details in the online application about what to include in the letter. So please look back at the online application before requesting these. And again, these are optional, but highly recommended. Okay, and so the outcomes and evaluation section for the prize is similar to that of the grants application, but for the prize, we ask you to describe the outcomes that you have already measured in your already implemented project. And we also want you to describe how those outcomes have demonstrated success in your project. So again, these outcomes should be focused on STEM learning and environmental literacy, and they should align with your activities and the audience that you've described in the other parts of your application. We also ask you to describe how you evaluated those outcomes. And remember here, again, there's a wide range of methods that you can use, but we hope that you have adapted them to your own project's context. Does not need to be elaborate or scientific, but whatever method you have used should be tailored to the outcomes that you were looking to achieve and tailored to the audience you were working with. All right, and the last section of the Excellence Prize we'll cover is the use of funds. So because this is a prize and not a grant, you do not need to submit a budget or timeline, but we do want to know roughly how you hope to use the funds, the prize funds, to advance your work. And so you don't need to connect this with a specific dollar amount, but we just want to know generally, if you were to be awarded the prize, how would you use those funds to advance either your organization or the project? And so this can include ways that you might replicate or expand your program. Maybe there's a new kind of innovative element that you want to include. So it can include any other innovative or interesting ways that you might advance your work. And our reviewers will be looking to see that your answers here are appropriate to your program scope and context. So again, we want to see that you've considered what context and audience you're working within and what's appropriate for that context. And in this question, we also ask you to share some lessons learned from your project, from this project that has demonstrated excellence in eSTEM already. And we want to hear about lessons learned that your organization could share with other organizations or programs if you were to be awarded the prize. And this is because we hope that this prize can help other organizations learn from the amazing work that your organization has done. So make sure that you address both of these elements in your use of funds answer. All right, so lastly, some overall advice that apply to both opportunities. Again, please make sure that you align everything in your application to each other. So make sure that your objectives, your activities, your evaluation, audience, timeline, and budget are all aligned. If there's a major activity that is mentioned in your description and it doesn't show up in your budget or your timeline, that's kind of a red flag. So make sure that you have everything aligned with each other. Make sure again that you've referred back to those required eSTEM elements that we mentioned and that are in the RFPs. So make sure you include those in your project description and include as much detail as you can. Use the word count as a guide and you can fill that word count. So when we say 800 words, you can fill that with as much detail as you can about your project that you're submitting for either the prize or the grant. And finally, of course, again, make sure that you look at the request for proposals. There's even more information in there. Really crucial that you take a close look at those. All right, so in our last 2 minutes or so here, well, I guess we did plan to go up to 11:15. So I know we've already spent a lot of time on questions. So if you are available to stick around until 11:15, we're going to get through the rest of this. We are almost done, and then we will have some more time for questions. So with that, my colleague Madeline is going to do a super quick demonstration of Submittable so that you can see exactly how to access the application. So let me stop sharing here.
Thanks, Nina. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is the landing page for the eSTEM Awards. I think Margot and Anne have both put this link in the chat and maybe one of you can add it again. But I'm gonna go ahead and just pretend like I'm applying for the grants today just so we can see what Submittable looks like. So I'm gonna click under the grants, apply here, and that'll take us to the Submittable page. And you'll see some information about the program. And importantly, you'll see information about Submittable itself, how you can sign up, how you can save a draft of your application, and who you can contact if you have any technical issues. If you don't have an account, you'll start by making an account here on the left. If you do have one like I do, you'll go ahead and sign in. And you'll see the same information shows up on the page, but if you scroll all the way down, you'll be taken to the actual application itself. So I won't go through the whole application, but I do want to point out a few things. The first is, again, like look over this eligibility before you start your application and make sure that that it applies to you, and you have to agree that you do apply and you are eligible. As you scroll down, you'll want to fill in all these things that are required. And you'll see that some things aren't required. For example, the letters of commitment aren't required. But if you do want to upload any of these things, just make sure that you are uploading the correct file type. So we'll keep scrolling through. The word counts are all located on the lower right hand of the box. And it will tell you if you've reached that limit. And then finally, just to point out the timeline and budget again, this is just for the grants. When you download the timeline and budget, you'll want to click where it says download the template here. And that will take you to Dropbox where you can find the downloadable file. And you click download here in the upper left corner. And then you'll fill that out and you'll re-upload it here to Submittable. When you finish with the application, you can either save it as a draft and submit it later, or you could submit it right now, and then you'll be all done. And let us know if you have any questions. And again, if you have any technical issues, you'll want to contact Submittable, and you'll find that information all the way up here at the very top about Submittable. And now I'll pass it back to Nina.
Awesome. Thank you, Madeline. So let me get back to my slides here. All right, so that's really quickly how to access Submittable. So we've got some great questions in the chat here. I just have a couple more slides, and then we will stop and take these last questions of yours. So the last thing that I wanted to share is just some additional resources that you might find helpful as you're thinking through your eSTEM programming. I mean, these are helpful for for this grant, but also beyond. So the first resource we wanted to share is our eSTEM Education EE Pro group. So EE Pro, if you're not already familiar with it, is our online hub for environmental education professionals. And we do have a interest group specific to eSTEM. And so in this group, you can connect with other professionals that are working on eSTEM. You can explore eSTEM resources and opportunities. So I encourage you to check this out if you're interested in connecting it with other people and resources in eSTEM. Well, we will share the links to all of these with the recording after this. We also have a new evaluation resource. So this is a great resource for exploring different evaluation methods and frameworks. And this whole website is focused on a culturally responsive and equitable framework to evaluating environmental education programs. So invite you to explore this as a resource, maybe as you're thinking through your outcomes and your evaluation methods, especially if you are proposing a new program. And additional resources, again, I can't say this enough, please make sure that you read those requests for proposals in detail. Please also explore that new green learning agenda that I mentioned earlier. We will share the link to that as well, and you'll find it in the online application and in the RFP. And we also have an eSTEM Awards FAQ page, so frequently asked questions page on our on the eSTEM Awards landing page. So take a look at that just in case there are other questions that that might pertain to you. And again, we will share all the links to these resources along with the recording. And that is it. I know we had a lot of information to share, but I hope that you find this helpful. If you have any additional questions that we cannot get to, or that if you have other questions that we do not get to on this webinar, please don't hesitate to email us at estem@naa.org. We are more than happy to help. And again, here's the link to the landing page for this program. So with that, if you have to head out, thank you so much for joining. But if you do want to stick around, if you have any other questions, we are happy to take more questions. So thank you all. Alrighty, what other questions did we have?
Hi, Nina. There is another question here. Margot addressed a bunch of them already in the chat.
Thank you, Margot.
Yeah, Margot's like super typing up fast her answers. There's a question from Chuck. Chuck's asking if you could say a little bit more about reporting requirements. Specifically, Chuck's asking about the prize, but I imagine folks are also wondering about reporting requirements for the grant. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we do have them laid out in the RFP. So we have on page 4, we have a specific section on requirements. For the prize for reporting, we will ask that our prize recipients attend at least one professional development training that we will have with the grantees. The goal of this is that you help share about your program, about your lessons learned with our grantees. We also ask that you provide updates on your program 1 year after you've received the award. So that is to share any updates, maybe how you've used the funds to enhance your program. And then you will also be asked to participate in our virtual conference next year, with potential opportunities to present about your project as well there. And then for the grants, I'm just pulling up the requirements here. For the grants, it is a little bit different because it is a grant that you're applying for. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, it's not loading here. Okay, here we go. So from the grants, again, these are all listed out in the RFP. The grant requirements are, we will have some professional development and networking sessions that we will ask all of our grantees to attend. The reporting requirements are for grantees, you will submit a brief narrative and financial report at the midpoint of your project, and then at the end of your project as well in October 2023. And if you are awarded a grant or prize, we're going to send you a lot more detail about what we will expect in those reports. And then for grantees, you will also be asked to attend and present at our virtual conference next October. And again, these are all listed out in the RFP and maybe even better detail that I can provide from reading off it right now. Great. What else did we have?
There are a couple of questions here from Meredith, and Meredith is asking if there's going to be one program officer assigned from NAAA to support the grants work, and also asking if they've already received a grant from our watershed work, so EE Blue, I presume. So would they be eligible for this program in addition to other grant funds?
Great question. So you will have one point of contact at NAAE if you are a grantee or a prize winner. So you will have one contact where you'll share all the reporting. That contact will be organizing all of the professional development, etc. So you will have one person that you'll be, not sure assigned to, but one person that will be responsible on the NAAE side. And yes, even if you have received an EE Blue grant in the past from NAAE, you are still eligible for this award.
Hello, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
This is Tom Plisk from Miami, Florida. I wanted to find out whether or not an excellence award would be given for a teacher training program as opposed to one that directly involves students.
That's a good question. I guess we'd have to see what level of impact it has on students. I'd have to be really clear in your application.
But we would be very clear. It's a
Yeah.
simulation program, and that teachers are trained to use it, and it goes directly to their students.
Yep. Yeah. I think you could submit on that, just making that super clear on how it's reaching the students indirectly.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yep. There's another question from Deborah. If we're not in a position to apply this year, will we be eligible for future grant opportunities? Margaret, did you respond to that in the chat already?
I didn't, no. I think she
Okay.
dropped off though, but same thing as I think I mentioned before. We are 90% planning to do this again in future years. So if you're meeting the eligibility requirements this year, or not meeting them this year, but you think you might be able to next year, you can definitely apply. They're going to be likely the same eligibility requirements though that we went over at the beginning of the presentation.
Great. Anything else? And again, if you have other questions as you're starting to develop your submissions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help. And do direct your questions to estem@naa.org. Well, if we do not have any other questions, you all had such great questions. So thank you so much for coming. And I'm sure others have benefited from your great questions as well. So again, thank you for joining. We hope you found all of this helpful. Reach out with any other questions, read through the RFP. I cannot stress that enough. And we're so excited to read all about your programs. Yeah, that's it. And thank you, Margot, and my colleagues, Anne and Madeline as well, for helping out with this. Good luck, everyone.
Yes, good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.